Hey, church family, I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement as we continue to pray for the recovery of our country. Now, it was September the 1st when the Wall Street Journal ran an article which was titled, "The Failed Experiment of COVID Lockdowns." Now, the author of this article, they set out to show the data that helps us to see that neither social distancing nor reopening have determined the spread of the novel coronavirus. According to the most recent research, which actually tallied the cumulative number of reported cases of COVID-19 all across our nation, researchers used all of this data from state and local health departments, which was aggregated by the COVID Tracking Project. Then they compared all of this data with the timing and intensity of the lockdown in each state and city. And here's what they discovered after doing all this research. They discovered that the 5 places with the harshest lockdowns had the heaviest caseloads. Think about that for a moment. The 5 places with the harshest lockdowns had the heaviest caseloads. Now, in light of this evidence, the author goes on to say this: there's no escaping the evidence that, at minimum, heavy lockdowns were no more effective than light ones, and that opening up a lot was no more harmful than opening up a little. The author of this article found at Wall Street Journal, they go on to ask this. They ask, so where's the science that would justify the heavy lockdowns many public health officials are still demanding? Where is the science? Where is the scientific research which would suggest that we must continue with heavy lockdowns? Scientifically speaking, there is no justification for continuing to enforce the draconian lockdowns that have, just about crippled our economy here in America. Listen, at the same time, there's good reason for us to think that there will be many benefits for the areas of America that begin to loosen their restrictions. In order to prove my point, I would simply appeal to the research conducted by the Kaiser Family Foundation, or KFF. In a KFF tracking poll conducted back in March, 32% of adults here in the United States reported that their mental health has been negatively impacted due to worry and stress over the coronavirus. That was 32% back in March. They presented the same poll in mid-July, and this is what they discovered, that this number had increased to 53%, which is significantly higher. It's significantly higher. The research shows that job loss is associated with increased depression, anxiety, distress, and low self-esteem, and may lead to higher rates of substance use disorder and suicide. Recent polling data shows that more than half of the people who lost their income or employment reported negative mental health impacts from worry or stress over coronavirus. According to one article which is found at Forbes.com, the amount of Americans reporting anxiety symptoms is triple. It's triple the number from this time last year. The CDC also reports that 11% of adults surveyed had seriously considered suicide in the past 30 days. Think about that. 11% of the adults that were surveyed seriously considered suicide in the past 30 days. The director of the CDC, Dr. Robert Redfield, he recently addressed his concern for young adults in America by declaring this. He says, we're seeing, sadly, far greater suicides now than we are deaths from COVID-19. Now, wrap your mind around that just for a moment here. Amongst young adults, more of them are dying because of suicide right now than from COVID-19. With this in mind, I would just remind you about the words of one infectious diseases expert from the University of Edinburgh. He said, lockdown was a panic measure, and I believe history will say trying to control COVID-19 through lockdown was a monumental mistake on a global scale. He goes on to say this: the cure was worse than the disease. The cure was worse than the disease. And the proof of this is found in the fact that now we have more young adults dying by suicide than from COVID-19. Listen, if you're struggling with anxiety, my heart goes out to you. If you're wrestling with suicidal thoughts, my prayers are with you. And I encourage you, it's time for you to connect with the Christians that you know and trust. You ought to be sharing your struggles with them. I encourage you, plug into your Christian community, because the fact is we need to connect with one another for the sake of our mental health. And this is one reason why I believe that Governor Greg Abbott has correctly identified the church here in Texas as an essential service. The church is an essential service, and it's necessary for maintaining the mental health of each person. And so I encourage you, plug into your local church. If you're here in the Austin area, I encourage you to join us here at Calvary South Austin as we continue to encourage one another. Don't forsake the assembly of the saints, but let's gather together for corporate worship and for encouragement. If you'd like to know more about our service times, if you want to know more about the measures that we're taking to provide a sanitized facility, well, you can find all this information right here at calvarysouthaustin.com. I do hope to see you soon. But until I do, let's continue fighting the good fight of faith, all for the glory of God.